Right, you lot. Now, last week I unfortunately had to do another video on ex-Premier League referee David Coote, and here we are doing another part 2. About 6-7 months ago, I did a video on RFK Jr. You know, that really bad health secretary of the US who doesn't have a clue what he's talking about, especially when it comes to autism. Now, RFK did this whole speech about how autistic people will never use the toilet, and this is a hideous disease that we need to find the cause of and the cure for. And he promised that he was going to have the cures for us. Now, as we know, autism is a genetic condition, mostly also with environmental factors, obviously. You can't cure it, you can't fix it, it is what it is. But we were sat on the edge of our seat anticipating what RFK and his 5 weird scientists who agree with him, despite the fact the rest of science don't, what this hidden cure or cause for all of this is. And what did they come up with? Paracetamol. I'm just gonna let it sit for a minute. When it comes to disabled people, America seems to be a country that, especially this current administration, does not like initiatives that are put in place to help disabled people thrive more in the country, and will not put in the accommodations or have the infrastructure to make things easier. The president doesn't believe in all that. That's utter woke nonsense. What he'd rather do is search for some hidden cure, the reason behind all of this, and they're blaming the most common and universally agreed accepted good painkiller, paracetamol, or as they call it in America, Tylenol. I'm going to call it paracetamol because that's what I know it as. Even the president himself in the speech admitted that there isn't a good alternative to paracetamol.
First question, what can you take instead? It's actually, there's not an alternative to that. And as you know, other of the medicines are absolutely proven bad. I mean,
really, it's the best one. And if it's causing autism, do better, women. Like, just don't, just don't take any painkillers during pregnancy. It's already a very tough experience as it is, but we're just gonna push that aside. You don't need to worry about that. He actually didn't have an answer for that. Now, if you're wondering if the president is correct about this, he isn't.
Oh, there's a big surprise!
Their evidence, like what evidence? When I did that video on the cloud fear, I'd argue I had the same amount of evidence that the president and RFK actually have in there. They have a few isolated studies or a few examples. They've probably found 10 people who said, yeah, I took paracetamol, then I had a child who was neurodiverse, so that must mean correlation equals causation. No, correlation doesn't equal causation. It's one of those easiest known phrases. Year 7s are taught that phrase, but they don't seem to understand that in the Trump administration, I guess. That just because somebody takes something and they happen to have a child who's neurodiverse does not mean that's the cause. For example, you could probably find, I'd say 98% of mothers who gave birth to autistic children, and they probably ate bread in the 9 months of the pregnancy. Maybe not 98, maybe 90, because lactose intolerant and stuff, but they probably ate bread. But we're not going to go around saying that bread is the cause of autism, are we? It sounds silly very quickly. They don't have any evidence, and they don't have enough evidence. In science terms, basically that means they have nothing. And they're running with it. It is such a strange hill to die on. And some of the justifications that the president would go and make in this speech just made his argument actually worse. One of the points he brought up, and he's done this one a few times, where he'll mention places in the world that don't take vaccines and don't have autism. Like he always talks about the Amish, for example, who have a whole host of their own diseases going on and weird stuff going on there. But yeah, the Amish don't test for autism. So obviously they're not going to have autistic people in a community that doesn't test, you idiot. It's not because they're not taking the vaccines. And his new argument is that Cuba, a country that apparently cannot afford paracetamol, I don't know if that's true, that's what he said, and they don't have many people with autism, so that must mean paracetamol causes autism.
But I hear Cuba doesn't have it because it's very expensive. And they don't have the money to have it, or they don't want to spend the money to have it. They don't have Tylenol. And I hear they have essentially no autism.
Excuse me, right? Cuba is a country that doesn't have the infrastructure or awareness to diagnose people in the same rate that America are able to. I already did a whole bit in the first video explaining why there's more people with autism now than 20 years ago or when the president was growing up. I really don't want to repeat it, but to sum it up quickly, that the simple reason is that as society's moved on, we have noticed more and more traits, had a greater understanding of what autism is, and actually got people diagnosed and built the accommodations and gave people what they need to thrive. And schools are doing so much better at it now, you know what I mean? You have people in their middle age now who, back when they were at school, they were just told to, so that they grow out of it, or that they were just bad behaved. Now they're getting diagnosed and realising, no, there was something different about me growing up, and there was a reason behind my behaviour. And they're seeing things in younger kids who are getting diagnosed now, and realising that was actually me. Another funny point he made was, he tried to say that 1 in 12 boys apparently have autism. I don't believe that. That number's just been pulled out of thin air. And then he said, fortunately, it's only 1 in 20 for girls. So the president doesn't understand, again, that it's harder to spot in girls, and that girls, societally, of course, are more easy to mask and hide their traits, so they're harder to spot. The numbers are probably equal. But of course he didn't get that. I really wasn't a big fan of the way in which the president spoke about autistic people as well. And it's the same thing I hate in a lot of media and like films that have autistic representation and stuff, is that, remember that really bad Sia film, Music? They always focus on the parents and how much of a burden these people are, and they almost dehumanise these people. And that's when Trump's speaking. When he's speaking, he's not saying, oh, I know this person who has autism. He's like, I know this mother who's got a child with autism. Trying to dehumanise or make out that there's something systemically wrong with this person, their disease, and that they need to be cured, and that it isn't right. People who are different being in society. Look, I'm not saying what you think I'm saying with that, but it reads like that, and it is very scary to have these widespread lies. You're going to have mothers, pretty thick ones at that, who are now going to be blaming themselves for having children that are neurodiverse because of some painkiller that they took. If you're a mother watching this, I'm a bit scared if you are, to be honest. I don't know why, but come on, it's not your fault. It's a genetic condition. If anything, it's your great-great-great-grandmother's fault, because it's hereditary, mostly. Though a lot of this country have actually condemned the president, and politicians, people in the news, everyone, scientists, all around the country have just debunked him and said that he's lying. Crazy that one of the most powerful men in the world is so openly lying, and we're just all going around with it. The one person who didn't condemn the president was Nigel Farage. Who's surprised?
Is he right?
I have no idea.
You think he might be right?
I have no idea. You know, we were told thalidomide was a very safe drug, and it wasn't. Who knows? Nick, I don't know.
Well, you wouldn't side with the medical experts who say it's dangerous nonsense.
I wouldn't. When it comes to science, I don't side with anybody.
Right.
And in an interview with Nick Ferrari today, he basically claimed that he doesn't know, it may be the case, and then he doesn't seem to trust any scientists. He doesn't trust science, which is a bit of a mental claim, isn't it, really? I wonder what his views are on, like, the Earth. Does he think the Earth's flat? Because based on that logic of him not trusting any science, because he can't then go and say, that's wrong because it's been factually proven. Well, it's factually proven that there isn't enough evidence between paracetamol and autism as well, but you won't, you know. And I get why he can't do it, because he's got all the American money, and, you know, he's in their pockets and all that, but come on. I call my mates out when they're wrong. He's a coward for not doing that, let's be honest. A lot of people have been sort of questioning, what is the motivation of President Trump to do this? Why is he doing this? Why is this the hill he's dying on? Now, some people brought up the autism in his family. I think he's got like a nephew, or like a second nephew or something like that. Someone in his family who suffers with a quite severe case on the spectrum of autism, and people think that that's really upsetting for him and that he can't understand and it's hard to see, and I understand that, but that's not the way you make life better for this person, because you're not going to cure him, because there's never going to be a cure. Ever, unfortunately. But for me, it's all smoke and mirrors, because anything that the president does, it's a classic tactic that he likes to use. It's like Boris Johnson in this country, where you do something funny, you do something viral that everyone's going to talk about, and then you secretly do something more damaging. And that was, of course, his United Nations speech with his lies about our London Mayor and Sharia law. But that's a whole other video which I'm not going to go into. The Sadiq Khan Trump beef is hilarious though, God. It's like a schoolyard fight, honestly. I've seen 16-year-olds more mature than them two going head to head, but it is quite funny. It's like trampoline all over again. I might do a video on it if you're interested. But yeah, overall, I actually hate doing political videos, and I hate talking about this man and RFK, these two. I mean, I don't like doing it, but this is something that I'm very passionate about for obvious reasons, and something that I feel needs calling out, and we need to keep pushing this thing, that this is one of the most disgraceful, incorrect things that's ever been stated, and people cannot be believing this. And just for your information, my mother didn't even take paracetamol while she was pregnant with me, so there. Goodbye, you lot.